Hey, what's up, y'all? This is the Art Mentor. My name is Sean. I'm a veteran art teacher and freelance artist. Today, we're going to be learning how to draw interior spaces in one-point perspective. So I'm going to be drawing a room with you. And this video is made for you to be able to pause me, rewind me, stop me, play me again, so that you can draw this along with me. And again, get a really strong foundation for how to draw interior spaces in one-point perspective. So let's do this. All right, y'all, today I'm gonna teach you how to draw a basic room setup just like this from start to finish, and this is made for you to follow along with me. So after each step, go ahead and pause this video, do it along, and then continue on. I'll teach you literally how to do everything in this space here. So here we go. All right, so the first thing that you wanna set up on here is gonna be your vanishing point. So what you wanna do is go ahead and take your nice big ruler that we talked about before, make an X like I'm gonna do right now. So now, as you go through this process, again, just wanna remind you, draw incredibly lightly. You're gonna be erasing tons and tons of line work throughout this. All right, so now that you have your X, you can go ahead and place your dot right in the center, right there. Now the next thing that you'd wanna do here is we're gonna set this up into a nice, simple, easy to follow demonstration of how one-point perspective works in a room. So to do that, we're gonna go ahead and take our T-square, and what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna follow the lines in between my orthogonal lines in order to create that. So you can watch me do that here. Now, as you're gonna go ahead and do this, one thing you saw me do is that I went from one edge to the next edge, to the next edge, to the next edge. I definitely recommend this. Don't try and do both top and bottom or both side to side first. Start at one point and follow it all the way around. And when you're all set, it should directly land on each of these. If it doesn't, your issue is that your lines that went to your edges of your paper, in this instance of one-point perspective, again, these ones were not straight. So just make sure that that's the case. Now, the next step here is that we need to go ahead and erase all of this out, and then we have a nicely defined room real quick. So here we go on that step. So here we are in basic one-point perspective, simplified version for practice. Right here, we have a back wall, a left wall, right wall, a ceiling, and a floor. So now let's go ahead and let's start to pour some stuff into here, because this in its own, it's pretty lame and boring. So let's start off with how to add objects into there. And again, this is going to relate to everything that I went over in my one-point perspective tutorial, and I'll link it down below just in case you need it again. Now what I want to do first is I want to go ahead and I want to put a nice dresser, because this is going to be a bedroom scene. We're always going to show the side of an object that's facing us. So right here, again, if a dresser were right in front of you, you would see this rectangle if you're standing right in the middle of the room. So first thing you want to do is go ahead and draw that out. So go ahead, pause this, and then join me next. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and show how this dresser recedes back into space. How is this affected by perspective here? So I'm going to go ahead and use my normal ruler now. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, again, make some orthogonal lines here. So now one thing you'll notice that I did not do that I did in my previous video, I did not draw each one all the way to the vanishing point. I find that you really don't need to do this when you're doing whole room scenes, because you're just gonna have way too much to erase on there, okay? So now that we've got this accomplished, now our next thing that we have to do, now that we've drawn our shape and we've made our orthogonal lines to our vanishing point, is we need to show how does this end? And this is, again, it's really simple. We're just gonna take a look at between the two orthogonal lines, there's a vertical line here. So I'm gonna make a vertical line here. Between these two orthogonal lines, there's a horizontal line. So I'm gonna place a horizontal line right here. All right, now obviously this is not gonna be made of glass, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna erase this now. It certainly would be helpful for me to have some place to put my clothes in the dresser. It's not just a box. So we're gonna make some lines indicating for where the drawers would be on this. So when you look at the dresser, we're gonna look at putting them right here on this face. It's gonna be facing out to the room. So for this, you gotta ask yourself, is this affected by perspective? Really easy to tell. Look at the top and the bottom here. Is this in perspective? Yes. So therefore, any lines I make here, any type of horizontal lines would not exist. They would be orthogonal lines because this plane of it is in perspective. So here, I'm gonna go ahead and line up to my vanishing point, create a couple orthogonal lines. They're gonna go to my vanishing point, indicating where my drawers are. So now that I have this, I've created a pretty simplistic IKEA version of what a dresser looks like, and that's fine. But here you can just see the basics of how this works, and now let's move on from there. Let's put a couple other key things in the bedroom. So now I'm gonna do something really similar to this, but over here, because right over here, this is where I'm gonna go ahead and put a nightstand. And next to that, we're gonna put a bed. I'm gonna start with a nice simple square right here. And whenever you put furniture in a room, I do recommend that you usually put it directly up to the wall, directly up to the orthogonal line, just like I did up over here. So right here, I went ahead and I made this face. Now, just like last time, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go ahead and create 1, 2, 3 orthogonal lines, and then I'm gonna cut them off by making a horizontal line a horizontal line here and a vertical line here. So watch this. I originally intended for this to be a square, but I didn't like that shape, so I turned to a little bit more of a rectangle. Now, as a final step for this, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put one set of lines here, just to show that there are drawers right there, because that's what I like to have on my nightstand. Now, before we continue, please don't forget to help my channel grow organically on YouTube, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Now, let's continue. All right, so for the next step, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna place a bed. Let me talk to you about how this is gonna work. So when you take a look at a bed or any more complex furniture, the easiest way to look at it is simply break it down. So when we break down its most basic shapes, we're gonna find that it's just simply composed of 3 rectangles. So now, as I'm doing this, you're gonna notice me making sure that I start this off by making sure that it aligns directly to the wall. That's exactly why I went ahead and I drew through my nightstand up over here, because it makes it much easier for me. And you'll notice me just kind of constantly drawing throughout that. I'm gonna make sure that this comes more than halfway through the room. Again, it's gonna go from starting from the right axis all the way over to the left axis. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, again, watch my video from before. It's down below in the comments there. Next step is clearly gonna be that I need to make my orthogonal lines. So just following what we've done here with other geometric shapes, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 orthogonal lines I'm gonna make to show them up into here. Now let's make our orthogonal lines. So as I'm drawing this, one thing I'm definitely gonna make sure that I don't do is I don't wanna bring my headboard back here all the way over into the very, very back wall, so I'm gonna stop it right before. And your drawing may look a little bit different from mine if you're following along, but it should pretty much look the same. You're gonna get some slight, small, very, very thin sets of orthogonal lines, like at the top of the headboard and towards the footer as well. So now let's see what happens next. All right, so following what we've previously done here, what we next wanna do is we wanna go ahead and draw where these shapes end. So again, I have a vertical line here, horizontal line here, a vertical line is gonna be really, really slight here, and a horizontal line here. So I'm gonna start at one end and work my way. I'm not gonna jump over here and here. Just go ahead and erase all of these extra lines within the bed frame, and you're good to go for the next step. And there you have it. You got a nice, beautiful, nice big bed to happen on. We're gonna put some other stuff, and I'm gonna detail this in a little while. So the last thing I wanna do is I wanna put a little rug right down here. I think that'd be nice. So I'm gonna make a very, very small sliver of a rectangle, and then I'm gonna move on. So watch this and follow along with me. I like to give a little bit of thickness whenever I do any type of rug, because again, no rug, even if it's flat, is totally flat. You should always think about depth in perspective drawing, which I'm gonna address heavily in this video. So now that we're done with this step, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make some orthogonal lines that are gonna go the length of the floor mostly here, and it's gonna get to my vanishing point. Here we go. So now let's move on to putting something really important, I think, to a room. And it's also illegal not to have these. We're gonna put some windows up here. All right, so the first thing we wanna do is we wanna go ahead and make a couple orthogonal lines. So we're going to create windows. And notice how I'm saying windows, not window. So I'm actually gonna create not one, but two different windows here. Now what's gonna be important is to make sure that when I create windows, and they're all gonna be in the same plane, in this case, all on the right wall, is that I wanna make sure that they're all aligned. And this is something I see done a little sus nowadays. So I'm gonna make sure that this goes a little bit above the horizon line, a little bit below the horizon line, just to show you the full impact effect of what I wanna do here. Now that I have this, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna box it in, as if it's just some type of rectangular shape that's in perspective. All right, so now that I've gone ahead and I've added on all these lines, one thing I now want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to break it up. And one thing that's very important to make sure you remember about perspective is that objects closer to you are bigger and objects further away are smaller. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some vertical lines just to show me how wide these windows are. And again, I want to make sure that this one on the right is going to be wider than the one on the left. So just about something like this should suffice for that. All right, so I went ahead and I fixed this after I did it the first time. And again, the reason why I did this is to show that these are both, even though they're individual windows, it's smart for you whether you're doing 2, 4, or 15 of them all on the same wall and all in a straight line. They should all follow the same orthogonal path. So that's what I've done right here. So next I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna erase these bits right here and then we're gonna move on. Now, as far as windows go, I just gotta be honest with you, they're terrible. This is something that I see done way too often, especially by newbies to perspective, and this is so wrong. No window in the world is this flat, and I'm gonna talk to you about that right now. First thing I wanna do is I wanna show how far out does this frame come from the wall. I wanna establish the depth on it. That's what's gonna make it look really good and impressive. So to do this, what we're gonna do is just create some simple rectangles. As you're gonna be doing this, remember that the window frames that are further back should not come out as much as the one that is forwardmost to us. So again, the one that is all the way to the right should definitely have a thicker frame that comes out a little bit more, so that rectangle should be just a little bit bigger. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw in the rest of the interior frame of this window. The casing on the frame is really important. So to do this, we're gonna go ahead and draw some orthogonal lines, top, bottom, and a couple vertical as well. So now we're getting a lot better. We're getting closer. They look way more 3D right now. I think you can agree with me on this, but not just yet. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna draw the depth of the windows because again, you see through a window, hopefully, it's transparent. So with that, we're gonna see the inside corner as well as the bottom of the top part and the top of the bottom sill. So to do this, the first thing that you'll wanna do is go ahead and make a couple vertical lines for the inside here. Now again, for this window that's further back, we are going to see more of that side of it because of where it is on the axes. And then this one that's closer to us, we're gonna see a little bit less of that. So just make sure that you have that in your drawing. I'm gonna draw this really lightly. I'm gonna draw all the way up. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw some horizontal lines from this corner until it hits this, and from this corner until it hits that. That way I know exactly where my orthogonal lines need to match up to. So watch me do this and you follow along. So as we move on here, you can see I finished up my windows as well as my T-square took a chunk out of some parts of my paper. Sorry about that, it looks really disgusting and ugly, but we'll move forward with that. One little thing that I did here, you'll notice a very subtle detail to it, but it's, I think, really nice for glass. Anything that's gonna have glass in it is I also drew a line on the inside of where my sill is, just so that I can tell kind of where that pane of glass exists. And then I like to do some line work or something like that. Really simple on it, just so you can tell. It's not totally clear. It gives it some type of reflective quality. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put a doorway up over here because that would be, you know, pretty important to get into a room. Unless you're trapped in one, in which case you're probably not watching this anyways. So putting the doorway up over here, I'm gonna start off with a rectangle for the side facing it, just like we have on my dresser right here, but it's gonna go behind this edge of the dresser, just to make sure I have a wide enough doorway for, you know, a human to fit through. So watch me do this. Now that we have that done, our next simple task is we have to go ahead and make our orthogonal line to our vanishing point. And then again, I'm going to make sure this only exists on this wall. And then finally, let's make a vertical line down to show where that doorway is ending. All right, now, this has the same problem as this over here. So that is that this just looks like a big fat canvas here. And again, I'm doing this to show where the door frame is, which is extremely important, just like the window frame. So now, to start this one off, one thing I'm gonna do is I wanna show how the frame should go down into the floor area. Like when you look at a door frame, it does that. So I'm gonna make a little orthogonal line here, and then I'm going to make an outline of it. Again, orthogonal line and 2 vertical lines. So watch this. All right, so now that I've done this, similarly to how we went ahead and we made the inside of the window frame here, so too we want to do the same thing on the door frame. Now look, at this point, you could just go ahead and draw an orthogonal line in a little circle here and you have a closed door. But personally, I don't really like that. I like to show kind of like when you look at real estate, doors are always open. So I like that effect better, especially because it makes the spaces look more open. So here, what I'm gonna do is I am gonna go ahead and draw a rectangle to show how, because I'm on the left side of the axis, I see the right side of an object. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to draw a rectangle here, and then I'm gonna figure out where my orthogonal line for the top is. Again, I see the top of this because it is below the horizon line right there. So draw this along with me. So now what I'd like to do is go ahead and show, since this is a hallway or an open room, whichever way you want to take it, but I'm gonna show this is a hallway. So I wanna show, hey, where's the floor in this one? I'm not gonna see the ceiling unless this is a super huge wide hallway. So what I'm gonna do here is just make a little orthogonal line right about here in the middle of my doorway. And now I get the sense that, hey, this is a whole nother room than this one. And again, this is a nice easy way for you just to keep your space looking more open. All right, so one last item I wanna put up here is I wanna go ahead and put a skylight up here. This is gonna be a pretty sick bedroom. I don't even have a skylight in my bedroom. So start this one off. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a couple horizontal lines with my T-square and then a couple orthogonal lines to base this out. So do this along with me. All right, so now that I have that done, again, I need to show the depth on it. So usually skylights, they're pretty deep. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna draw a rectangle, and that way I'll be able to know where my orthogonal lines need to exist for showing the depth on it. So go ahead and watch me do this, and you do it yourself. So again, just like when I did my door frame or my windows here, you want to go ahead and match up those corners to your vanishing point, and that's going to give you your orthogonal lines. All right, and there you have it. You have a nice, beautiful skylight happening there. Last thing that I'm going to do with y'all before I really advance this thing is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some shelves right here on the back wall, again, just to demonstrate how this is going to look and also to cover up some of this nastiness that accidentally happened. So watch me do this. Couple rectangles, y'all. All right, so I know I said a couple, but I did 3. So now the next thing to do, and this is a really good demonstration of, by the way, what happens on the back wall, how it's a little different, and just basically how the horizon line is going to work. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna match up all my corners to this. So up here, I'm gonna see the bottom of it and the side. Over here, I'm just gonna see the side because it's right on my horizon line. And then this one right here, I'm just gonna see the top of it because it's below my horizon line. So watch me do this. So there you go, yours should look something like mine. Again, yours may look a little different depending on how long some of your shelves are. Like I don't see a little tiny bit of that side, and I don't see any of this side at all. So that's pretty typical though. Now, one last final thing I wanna go over is how to do some circular objects. I haven't covered that yet. So right up here, I'm gonna go ahead and put some pot lights. So to do this, I'm gonna make a couple orthogonal lines here and a couple orthogonal lines here just to start it out. And then I'm just gonna show how big I want them to be with some horizontal lines. So watch me do that and follow along. Now, my biggest piece of advice to you whenever you're gonna draw these, especially anything circular, is that you definitely want these to be amongst your lightest lines, because every structural line we're making, we are going to erase at the end of this. All right, so now that I have this part done, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use these rectangles that I've made in order to draw in circles. Now, a couple things with this, notice how, again, the ones closest to us are bigger than the ones further away from us. And one little thing about anything that's circular in perspective, it's usually not going to be circular unless it's gonna be on the back wall. So with that, it's usually gonna look a little bit more ovally. So if that doesn't make any sense to you, go ahead and watch this and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Here we go. So now, one last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw another oval right on the inside, a little bit further back though, because pot lights usually, again, have depth similar to windows and door frames, everything else that we've done so far. So watch me do that. All right, so now I've done that, I actually want to erase, like I said earlier now, all of these structural lines. So I'm gonna be using a really fine eraser just to do all these corners here. And then we're gonna be all set with that. All right, so there we go. Now we have some nice looking pot lights, looking three-dimensional right there. And now in just a second, cut that. So now that we have a nice basis here, you could really decorate the snot out of this like I'm gonna do in just a second. But yeah, this is the basics of what you would need to know for how to make any room and how to make most objects within any room. I would follow one of these three structures that I've taught you about how to do today. So now, check me out as I go ahead and I detail this to show you what you can do with this. As you see me drawing this, I'm just gonna let you know in advance, sorry, but my phone ran out of storage while I was in the middle of recording, so it's gonna get cut off at the end, but just to give you the skinny on this, yeah, this is all supposed to be just a simple jumping off point, not an end point, and this is a very simplified version of this. And I'm gonna show you how to do better, cooler, more complex versions of this in my next video here. So make sure that you figure out how this all works and apply it for your own, and I hope you enjoyed this practice with me. If you like this content, don't forget to like and check out the rest of my videos right here.